Current day classification. First, immunofluorescence microscopy. You know what that means. Immunofluorescence is literally looking for immunoglobulins. Let's first take a look at the arm on your left, shaded light gray, where we find immunofluorescence shows immunoglobulin, Ig, plus C3 deposits in the capillary wall, plus the mesangium. Now, you anatomically, are you thinking and seeing all this at this juncture? Next, this is immune complex-mediated MPGN, membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis. Stop there. Immune complex-mediated. What does that mean to you? It'll be a type 3 type hypersensitivity. This would be the most common type of MPGN etiology that we'll take a look at in general. Next, well, we'll take a look at to determine the source of the circulating immunoglobulin or immune complexes. And by that I mean that immune complex that's being deposited. Now, as a whole, as I said, this would be the most common etiology. And you'll see the differentials upcoming. Determine the source. Maybe it was an infection. The big infection that you want to keep in mind here is hepatitis C. Are we clear? Hepatitis C oftentimes associated with rheumatoid type of factor, actually, RF. Rheumatoid factor, what does that mean? That means that you have your IgM component, which is then attacking, literally, the IgG portion of your Fc receptor. Amazing, amazing. So oftentimes, now there's a lot of immunology involved there, but the hepatitis C ends up having an MPGN that's immune complex mediated. What others? Well, the other ones, we have autoimmune diseases, including rheumatologic diseases, and these then include things like Sjogren, rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, SLE, and so forth. What else may have immune complex deposition? Monoclonal gammopathies or dysproteinemias. Big example here will be monoclonal gammopathy of undetermined significance and multiple myeloma, or something like Waldenstrom macroglobulinemia. This is our first category of MPGN. It's immune complex mediated. Next, what if the immunofluorescence shows dominant C3 staining with little or no C1q? That then brings us to our branch on the right. This would be complement-mediated MPGN. Complement-mediated. Stop there. Take a look at the two major classifications. We have immune complex and we have complement-mediated. If it is complement-mediated, then your next step of management, or at least your next step of diagnosis, would be, in fact, your electron microscopy. Now, with this electron microscopy, if you find that your entire basement membrane is black and thick and black, rare, but you still need to know it big time, then it's DDD. That triple D stands for dense deposit disease. Once again, dense deposit disease. Where on the basement membrane it's black and thick. This is your electron microscopy. Whereas, well, you can have issues with what's known as C3 glomerulonephritis as well. A separate issue. We're not going to spend a lot of time there, but we will spend time with type 2 MPGN. Listen, type 2 MPGN is only associated with dense deposit disease. Is that clear? Let me ask you something else. Well, let me finish this up, and then I'll ask you, of the two, immune complex or complement mediated, which one of these would be more common in terms of occurrence? And you'll see what I'm getting to. Dysregulation of alternative complement pathway. The alternative complement pathway. So what you end up having is the fact that you have antibodies to complement regulators. Now, what that means to you is the following. Those of you that are ahead of the game, and you know what I'm referring to, that type 2 type of MPGN oftentimes is antibody associated, but it is now directed towards a complement regulator known as nephritic factor. I want you to think of that and its occurrence in society and patients, big picture, versus the branch on your left and its differentials at the bottom, where we have hepatitis C infections, autoimmune diseases, and monoclonal gammopathies. My goodness gracious, what kind of disease pathway for MPGN do you think occurs more commonly in our society clinically? Obviously the one on the left. So what is the one on the left called? What kind of MPGN? Well, the older type of classification gave it a type 1 MPGN. Is that clear? Whereas the one on the right, where you have antibodies directed against complement regulators such as nephritic factor and dense deposit disease, would be type 2 MPGN. Now, can you clearly see how type 1 is far more common than type 2? But these are the important points that you want to take away from this flowchart to give yourself a bird's eye view how to approach your patient with MPGN. And then as we go further through here, we're going to plug in the details. Let us now continue.